Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Collector Car Stories podcast on collectorcarcanada.ca. Today we have an aficionado, particularly of Ford, but of a lot of domestic cars, and he happens to be a childhood friend of mine, both from school days and summer camp days. So welcome Andrew Sommers to the CCS podcast. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm just a regular guy who grew up with the hobby. My parents actually, my dad for Mother's Day, and I'm going to say around 1968, brought home a 56 Thunderbird for my mom.
Wow.
And of course, it being Mother's Day,
Yes.
it slid that one through. So that was, my introduction. My parents had Thunderbirds when I was a kid. And so I've always, loved the car. They did set the standard for the personal luxury segment.
Right.
Without those cars, you don't got your Rivieras, you don't got your Cutlasses, you don't got your Monties.
We'll get into T-Birds in a minute, but so long as you mentioned Ford, Andrew, it's probably worth us mentioning that today we're at Pine Tree Ford, and this venue was set up by another one of our school friends back in, we'll say 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So, T-Bird, I know you're a T-Bird aficionado.
Yep.
If I recall correctly, I think the first T-Bird was released in the 1955 model year.
It was 55 model years, released in 54 fall, because they're always the fall before.
Right.
And
two-seater originally.
It's interesting. The first 3 years were two-seaters, and what's unique about the one that's outside is
We'll get to that too.
But from 55 up to 67,
Right.
bucket seats were the standard.
Right.
And then in 68,
Were they the only seats available, buckets only in the front?
you could get a bench if you wanted.
Oh, you could order it. Okay.
But the buckets were standard. In 68, though, bench seat became standard.
Okay.
And so it was just a switcheroo there.
Were you able to get the buckets in 68
Of course,
plus?
as you'll see.
Sure.
Sure.
I guess I know the answer to that one already. So, as Andrew's hinting at, he's driven his 1968 T-Bird today to the dealership. It got some wows and oohs and ahs at the dealership. We're surrounded by Ford product. As you see behind us, there's the current Ford GT here. Not a GT40, only the first one in the 60s was a GT40. But what I think this would be a 2021, 22. I'm not sure what the model year is.
Somewhere around there for sure.
But beautiful car, might even be a seven-figure car. But even with that in our surroundings, there's also a 24 Dark Horse to my left. We'll get a look at that. But even with those brand new high-end Ford products, Andrew's 1968 T-Bird caught some eyes when he pulled in and when we parked it for the tour of the car we're about to give you. So, Andrew, I'm very familiar, I'm somewhat familiar with your 68 T-Bird.
Yeah.
I think it's not the only T-Bird you own, is that right?
No, there's also a 57 as well.
57, so that's the last year of the two-seater, if I
That is
recall
correct.
correctly.
And the unique thing about that car is it was the first car to have a power memory seat.
Oh, is that
Something
right?
that you take,
Wow.
sort of for granted
Almost
today.
for granted.
And in 1957, the Lincolns and the Ford Thunderbird had the dial-o-matic power memory seat for that year.
Okay.
And then they didn't reappear
It was
for
probably
20 years.
Is that right? I was going to say it was probably considered a gimmick by some at the time, and then here we are, almost 70 years later, and it's a very common feature on the higher end stuff. You don't get it in every car, of course. I know you've owned other T-Birds. Are there only two T-Birds in your ownership right now?
My wife does have an 05.
Oh, that's
50th
right.
anniversary edition.
I think that's the most recent year of Thunderbird, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then she also at one time had a 61 Thunderbird.
Right. Yeah. So that one's been moved along too, hasn't it?
It has found a new home.
Yeah, we sold CollectorCarCanada.ca sold a 2005 last year, but I think your wife's is super low miles. It's a real cream puff, isn't it?
No, it all depends on what you call low miles these days.
Sure.
It would be, for a 20-year-old car, it's got, just under 100,000 kilometers.
Oh, okay, so relatively low.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen your other two, I guess. But okay, so that covers a couple of T-Birds. We are in a Ford dealership, and for me, I drove one here today. Ford's had a lot of great product over the years, but when I think of Ford, I think the first thing I think of, the one they sell the most of is the F-150, of course, but I think Mustang.
Sure, absolutely.
There's probably there's a Mustang at your house, I think.
Well, my wife about 11 years ago, she said that she wanted a car to bomb around in and enjoy in the summertime, top down.
Sure.
And we looked at a car in Concord at a dealership there, sort of classic car, dude. And
Concord, Ontario.
That's correct. Yeah. Not California.
No, I was thinking New Hampshire. But go ahead.
Ah, there you go. Anyways, it was a yellow, 1970 convertible, 351 Cleveland, and looked great. And then so we went home to talk about it, and then it moved on.
Right.
And
as in that dealer sold the car.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And what we ended up finding out is that a fellow that my uncle knows ended up buying the car.
Okay.
And he had a dealership down in Burlington. So we trotted right down on there.
So a dealer bought it for resale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically we made a deal.
The price was probably lower at the second guy, was it?
Well, he gave it to us basically for what he paid for it. So we knew what he paid for it.
Okay.
And so basically threw in an extra grand or something like that.
Yeah.
And voila, my wife had a nice one of one 1970 Mustang to cruise in. She enjoys it to this day.
And that's a convertible.
It is.
With a 351 V8.
Yep, Cleveland.
A Cleveland, okay. And one of one. Now, do you know about that from buying a Deluxe Marti report?
So a Deluxe Marti report came with said automobile.
All right.
It's not as exciting as you would think. There are a lot of one-on-ones out there.
Sure.
But in this particular case, it was just the color, the fact that it was a convertible,
right.
The fact that it was an automatic, the fact that it had the interior it did, the most important thing, the fact that it had 351 Cleveland.
Sure.
And
well, yeah, I guess we discount that now, but today, that you don't get an option sheet line item by line item like you did then. Today you order packages. So they're one of one. That means something to me.
Yeah, you can't. Unfortunately, you can't check off the boxes like you used to.
Right.
It was the old classic story of Jay Leno when he was a kid, clicking off the box for his dad on a Galaxy. I think it was a 67 or 68 Galaxy.
Another Ford.
Maybe
okay.
66. And of course, the first thing he did was write for the R code.
I know this story. Yeah, go on, please. Yeah.
And
because I know Leno was born in 1950, so in '66 he was 16 or 68 or 18. So he was thinking about going fast.
Yeah.
So R code,
Yeah, the exhaust, the whole bit, right? And of course, his dad never knew, but Jay loved that car so much that he went out, bought another one,
sure,
and literally had it restored to exactly what that car was.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Right. Yeah, that's neat. It's always we shot a podcast just yesterday, and our guest Amy Bradley told about having a booth at Motorama just in March, I guess it was, in Mississauga, Ontario, at the International Centre, and she told a story of a man who built a car with his father.
Yeah.
And in his father's lifetime, they sold the car. Then his father passed away, and the son really wanted to get the car back, and he undertook a search, and sure enough, he found it. And so we do hear about those stories, of course. I know I think that's 3 Fords so far, 2 T-Birds and a Mustang. Your daily is an Explorer, if I remember correctly.
I'm on my 3rd generation Explorer.
Yeah.
It is the first unibody.
I was going to say that's a unibody now.
Yeah. I definitely miss the days of the body-on-frame Explorer with the V8, but it's still it's a quality vehicle.
Sure.
It does everything that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Does it well.
Good.
So I can't complain.
Good. Okay. And what else is in the garage at Shea Sommers? Or in I guess you have storage up near Lindsay, Ontario, somewhere that way.
Yeah. Let me see now. Wow, there's an 85 Buick LeSabre.
Oh, wow. So that'd be the last of the rear drive LeSabres, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a nice car. It's a living room, literally the living room on wheels.
Now, the seats on that, like a velour seat?
Oh, they're velour. It's a couch. Very puffy.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're so used to with the leather that basically everybody has today. You just sort of slide right in.
It's ubiquitous now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas, this sucker, it's grabbing you the whole way in.
Yeah, sure it would. Lots of friction.
Oh, yeah.
Would that have a 307 engine? something like that.
It does.
Yeah, 307 V8.
Yeah.
Sure. Does that cover the garage at your place? I know I love that GM truck you had. I think that was a 73, was it? 72?
It was a
green
72.
one? Yeah,
72.
that was a beauty, but that's moved along.
Yeah, that's moved along as well.
Yeah, we had an impromptu Cars and Coffee up in the neighborhood here of Pine Tree Ford, somewhere in Vaughan. It's just off Steeles, I think. And my Porsche friends were pretty impressed by your 73, 72 or 3?
72.
72 truck, yeah.
73 was a body change.
Yeah. Oh, right. 73 to 87 for the square bodies. Where was my head? Okay, one other thing I know you're definitely active in. I know you're the past president of the AACA, Antique Auto Club of America, Ontario chapter. Is it Ontario Region?
Close. It's the Antique Automobile Club of America,
Right.
Ontario Region.
Ontario Region.
From 2011 to 23, I was the president.
12 years of service. I said past president. You're past president.
Yeah, past president. Yeah.
So a 12-year term.
Yeah.
Tell us about that club a little bit, please.
It's a great club. I mean, they've been around now for over 60 years.
Okay.
If anybody's familiar with
Even the Ontario region, 60 years?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The AACA themselves were formed in 1935
I figured, yeah.
in Pennsylvania.
Pre-war.
Yeah. And of course, back then, a classic was like your brass era stuff.
Sure.
1904, 05, 06. That's what they considered.
My 91 CRX is a classic now, but go on.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean,
In case that sounded like I own it currently, unfortunately I moved it along.
A 99 Corolla is a classic.
That's 25 years old, I suppose.
Lada's classic.
Yes, sir.
So we've been around over 60 years. The club hosts a flea market every year. At
Right.
the Lindsay Fairgrounds.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about that.
Yeah. Initially, they had started one in Sterling, but we grew the space.
Right.
So we moved to Lindsay.
I've been to that one. It is huge.
And then the folks in Sterling, they got together and they were able to maintain, a flea market there as well. So, nice thing is that everybody's getting well served.
Too big a flea market for just one day. I think you do Saturday and Sunday, don't you?
Sunday, 700 vendor sites.
Right.
It's a
So
good
we'll
show.
pop up a URL on the video that people can see. So I know it's in May. Is it the last weekend of May, the weekend after Victoria Day?
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's
So
the one.
get ready now for your all vendors, and great place to go find that specialized part.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly for domestics, would you say?
You know what? Most of it, I would say, is typically domestics, but there is foreign stuff that does pop up.
Okay, good.
It just depends on what somebody's got to sell.
So I suppose that flea market every year is the big MO of the AACA club.
Yeah.
But I bet you guys get out for the odd cruise together.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. So we're a touring club.
Sure.
So we've got a May tour, which we would call our Mother's Day tour.
Right.
We'd have a June tour.
I've joined either the Mother's Day or the June one in the past, but go on.
Yeah.
But just that those are for the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Father's Day tour.
Yeah.
And then we have the big feature tour, which is what we call the London to Brighton tour.
Right.
Now the name comes from
I was
the
going to say,
London
where'd
to
the
Brighton.
name for that come
Yeah,
from?
it came from the London to Brighton tour in England.
In the UK. Yeah.
However, we do have a London and we do have a Brighton.
We
here
do
in Ontario.
indeed.
So every 5th year,
And there ain't many Mustangs at the London to Brighton tour in the UK.
as a matter of fact, there is probably nothing that even goes 30 miles an hour in the UK.
Yeah.
But every 5th year, we actually do touch London and Brighton.
Right.
And then in between, it's the organizer's, choice.
Find some good 2-lane highways with lots of greenery.
Oh, exactly. I mean, a couple of years ago, we went down to the Eastern Townships for the week. We've gone to Vermont for the week.
Okay.
This year,
That's nice country. I went to university out that way. Yeah.
Yeah. This year, they're going to do a hub tour out of Midland.
Okay.
So doing some touring around there. It's a great tour. And then in August, of course, you've got to have a barbecue.
Sure.
That's what clubs do.
Sure.
And
Take advantage of the good weather while we have it.
there you go. And then, of course, in the fall,
Yes.
there's the foliage.
fall foliage.
So there's a weekend there
Sure.
set aside for a little touring as well. And of course, any member can also join in with any of the national clubs tours. And in fact, last year we ran.
Like reciprocity among the chapters, I guess.
Yeah. Then last year we ran on behalf of the AACA what was called the Founders Tour.
Okay.
So basically, any car. Well, we just allowed any car, but typically it's for cars post World War II.
Okay.
But we said, listen, if you got a car from the 30s, what the hell, bring it.
So are you looking for cars that are 25 years plus, though?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
typically
Yeah.
the way it goes. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's enthusiasts.
Sure.
You don't have to have a car. Just the enthusiasm is all you need.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to tour, I mean, it's nice to have the old car, right?
It is indeed.
And that could be a '91 Mustang.
Sure it could.
Yeah.
Sure it could. I wish I had a 91 Mustang. I have a 97.
Okay, well, whatever.
I used to have a 90. It sold on the website in the website's infancy. But yeah, I was hoping we'd get back to Mustangs. As I think you know, I'm a member of the Golden Horseshoe Mustang Association. Most of my, being GTA based, most of my car activity is a little west of the city. I get the sense that most of your activity is a little east of the city, if not northeast. And I know there's a big Mustang club out, say, Oshawa way, called the Durham Region.
Yep, Durham Region Classic Mustang Club.
Yeah.
And of course,
Classic Mustang. So they different. So is it Fox body and older, something like that?
no, actually, I mean,
No.
that's how it started. But,
Right.
let's face it, nowadays, you want to get as many people as possible. And not everybody can afford an older Mustang or keep a second car.
Sure. Maybe as we're speaking, our cameraman would walk over and get a shot of the Dark Horse Mustang, the 2024 Dark Horse. We'll just keep talking. Just get a couple of shots of the Dark Horse as we speak about Mustangs.
Yeah, so they open it up to all Mustang owners.
Yeah.
So you could have a Dark Horse,
Yeah. Okay.
or a modern Shelby or whatever.
Sure.
And still be a participant in the club. It's being an enthusiast of the Mustang.
Right.
That's really what it's all
Yeah. I know the Mustang culture is one strong loyalty to the brand. Do you get any Mustang 2s though between 74 and 78 out of the
I'm not
region?
saying that they're not available, like they're not there. I haven't
You
seen
don't see
one.
them not
Well,
much,
I haven't seen them. My mom had one.
Is that right?
Yeah, my
From
mom
new?
had one.
Like?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a 74. She
Yeah.
she got it maybe a year.
My mother had a 73 Pinto, so pretty close.
Well, it's interesting because what it did is it replaced a 70 Thunderbird.
Oh.
So it's a bit of
Oh, for her, your mother?
Yeah.
Okay, not in the Ford lineup.
No. So the funny thing is that like she went from a big 7-liter motor
Sure.
down to a 4-banger.
Yeah.
And a little Gia,
The Gias, yes.
body car, and had that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And which was then replaced by the Granada.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
the poor man's Lincoln. if you
Mercury
will.
Monarch cousin, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I guess the beginning of the Fox body was 1979.
Yeah.
Model year anyway.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so that's the Durham Club. So how about cruising and meets for them and annual shows? What kind of stuff what kind of trouble do they get into?
Well, they've got an all Ford show.
Okay.
It's coming up the second Saturday, I believe, in Port Hope.
Okay, second Saturday of August?
September.
September, okay.
Sorry. Now, you can go to
We'll look
their-
that up and get some information.
They
superimpose
do have
on
a
the screen.
limited amount of spaces left.
Okay,
So, and it's a great show.
okay.
You get to see cars there that you don't see that often
Sure.
anymore.
But what kind of turnout for that, Andrew?
Well, they've capped the amount of cars at 250.
Okay,
And
manageable.
It's full.
Sure.
It's full. They actually probably had more, and they had to cut it back just to make sure that
And-
everybody can move around.
Would you say it's greater than or less than 50% Mustang?
Probably less than 50% less.
So a good variety then.
Oh yeah, no, great variety.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you got your trucks,
Trucks too,
you
eh?
got your cars.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds, probably on the low side in terms of numbers.
But represented,
But
I'm
you'll
sure.
get Fairlanes, Galaxies, Torinos.
One of our past podcast guests, Jim McHugh, we've shot one fun episode with him where he walked us through the resto of one of his 67 Galaxies.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. 67 Fairlane. He's got 3 of them. He calls them his class of 67. So he's got a Ranchero,
Yep.
he's got a hardtop coupe, and he's got a convertible.
Nice.
So he's very loyal to the Fairlane market.
Nice. Well, a friend in the Durham Region Club also has a Fairlane. I believe it's a 67.
Yeah.
And it was off the road for about 25 years, and we finally got it back together.
Good for him.
With the help of the members of the
Yeah, well,
club.
that's what it's about. Yeah.
And it's the epitome of coming together.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's what old car people do.
Jim told his story of restoring and there were several sort of vignettes, anecdotes that just like that.
Yeah.
And of course, then in '68, that was the beginning of the Torino, so big change for the Fairlane.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that all sounds pretty good. And then This one's an international club, being that it's model specific. Is it Thunderbird International?
Classic Thunderbird International.
Yeah.
Classic Thunderbird Club International. Originally, up until very recently, it was for the 1955 to 7 Thunderbirds. But like anything, you know, it's hard to. There's only so many of them built, and
they probably want to expand too. More the merrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there were only so many people who either A, could afford them or store them or whatever.
Sure.
So their numbers were actually shrinking.
Okay.
So with the 2002 to 2005 Thunderbirds, them still being two-seaters,
Right.
coming up to the age of the classic, they got wise and they now include those cars as part of the club.
Sure.
So it's for the first generation and the last generation.
Okay.
The only two-seater generation Thunderbirds.
They would be, sure, yeah. I think I remember a story about Marilyn Monroe being an owner of a first generation T-Bird.
She had a black
Is that right?
56.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Original, she would have bought it new, I suppose.
Yeah, it was bought when she was married to Arthur Miller.
It's funny, another of her husbands came to mind when you said 56.
Yeah.
As you may know, her former, well, they're both long since gone, but Joe DiMaggio, one of her husbands,
Yeah.
in 1941, he had base hits in 56 games in a row. So
Oh,
isn't that a fun coincidence?
No,
with numbers?
never thought of that.
Yeah. I never had either.
No.
All right, and before we go take a look at your T-Bird, we're looking forward to having a tour of that. We'll do that outside, the car's outside in the sun. Any fun or crazy stories from car club days or road trips, anything fun stuff like that you want to share?
You know what's funny, right?
Yeah.
If you break down on the side of the road
Yeah.
and your daily driver,
People just cruise on by.
It is, and it's like, oh God, you know, oh, what a terrible thing. You know, this is going to cost me a fortune. But the thing is that when you break down in an old car,
Right.
hopefully it doesn't happen very often, you know, people are there for you.
I stopped for someone just on Saturday, actually. It was I think it was a 40, but definitely a Ford. But it looked like a father and son. Maybe they worked on the project together themselves. I would peg the son at 40 and the father at 70. I could see they'd overheated.
Yeah.
I could see some steam coming up from the engine bay. But I pulled over to make sure. Basically today, if you have a cell phone, you're okay. And they had their phone, so they were okay. But yeah, we collector car people, we old car people, we like to help each other out if we need to.
Oh, for sure.
And I get a funny look when not that I drive new cars, but when I'm driving one of my more modern cars and I pull over for a 40 Ford, and I can think of us pulling over for a 70 442 last year. Sometimes they're surprised because they don't know I'm an old car person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you never know, and it's always nice to come across, you know, people who show enthusiasm.
That's
you
right,
know, for
yeah.
the cars. We were up in Quebec a couple of years back,
Uh-huh.
and I tell you, the Quebecers, they just love the old cars.
They do, eh?
Oh yeah, I mean, they were all over the place. They wanted to film the exhaust noises.
What were you
and
driving
stuff
at
like
that?
The 68.
The 68 T-Bird.
Yeah, it's the it's been up to Trois-Rivières for pizza.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate highway cruiser.
Sure it is,
I mean, I'm more comfortable in that car than I'm in any other car.
I don't blame you.
And no, it's a great cruiser.
Good.
And I mean, you know, like I remember the first tour we went on with it, and we were probably barreling like crazy to get to the hotel.
Yeah.
Only to find out that when we got to the hotel, the brake master cylinder had gone. So at any moment, we could have gone.
That would have mobilized the troops, I bet, right?
we
Everyone
could've-
wanted to help.
We could have gone off the road or whatever, you know, but, you know, it was all good in the end.
Now, I think we're wrapping up for what we're going to film inside before we go out to your car. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't ask our cameraman to do a little lap like he did for the Dark Horse of this Ford GT behind us. Why don't we take a look at that and take advantage of being in the Ford dealership?
And
it's
you know
not
what,
every
so-
Ford dealer that's got a Ford GT in its showroom, I'd say.
And you know why it's only called a GT?
I know it's not a GT40.
It's just brand. It's because of the rates. That's it.
Right. I do know that GT40s, the ones from the 60s and the famed Ford versus Ferrari movie, they're 40 inches high.
Yeah.
40 inches tall.
Yeah.
I know the second generation was somewhere around 44. I assume this one's higher than 40 as well.
Somebody owns the name to
Yeah.
the GT40, hence
Is that
they couldn't
right,
use it
eh?
again.
Oh, that's interesting to know. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap up this segment and we'll head outside to take a look at Andrew's 1968 Ford Thunderbird with a 429 V8.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.